the thing that threw me into the fight is when the governor of our state, I call him Governor Mussolini, when the governor of our state had the audacity to declare that the church, the bride of Christ, was non-essential.
Well, with all due respect, it's essential that we practice physical distancing everywhere, period, full stop.
I mean, strip clubs were essential. Cannabis distributors were essential. Liquor stores. I'm sorry?
Planned Parenthood.
Abortion clinics were essential. And of course, Costco's, but small mom and pop businesses weren't essential, just the big ones who had lobbyist money. When he declared that the church was non-essential, he was out over his skis because, look, I'm not going to question cannabis distributors or liquor stores, but one thing I do know, they're not covered in the first 16 words of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That made it very clear that we have every right to be open. And when he came out with that edict during our Holy Week, Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday, and he said we couldn't practice the sacrament of communion. I mean, come on. Who do you think you are? I mean, you're governor, you got a lot of power, but you're not God. When our founders established this nation, they made it very clear who the sovereign of the country was in the first 3 words of the preamble, the Constitution. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, we're the sovereign. And then they allowed us to elect only one branch of government. We didn't elect the Senate, we were only allowed to elect the House. The Senate was appointed by the House, and then by the Electoral College, the president was elected, and then the president appointed the judiciary. So we elected the lower house in a bicameral legislature, and they give us that authority, and they're directly responsible to us. They're our representatives. Now, the minute that they gave the House, the Congress, the purse strings, because they run the budget, it became the most powerful branch of government. But then they gave the Bill of Rights, and the very first amendment, you look at it, the Declaration of Independence is poetic. It's beautiful. It says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary. I mean, it just goes on in this eloquence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among those being life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And then the preamble, the Constitution, is eloquent and beautiful. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. And yet, you look at the very First Amendment, it's not eloquent. It's angry and prohibitive. Congress shall make no law. Right? I mean, they make it abundantly clear. No government gets in the way of man worshiping God, ever. That's a no-brainer to me. So when the governor of our state said that the church was non-essential, as a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, I understand the church to be the bride of Christ, and so does God. I've been married to my wife, Michelle, for 33 years. I don't care. I mean, I was just interviewing Chuck Liddell, and the guy's got muscles in places where I don't have places. But if Chuck Liddell were to say to me, your wife is non-essential, Chuck would be picking up his teeth with his broken arm. I mean, I cannot tolerate any government demeaning the bride of Christ. And, you know, there were a handful of Catholic priests. When we look at the Eucharist as the literal body and blood of Christ, for my Catholic brothers and sisters, I was astonished that they didn't stand in unison. But the ones that did, those guys, I am so moved and inspired by them. Because in a hierarchy, in a centralized religious denomination, they get relegated to obscure parishes out in the middle of, you know, East Jabip. But the consequences, and this was Nazi Germany, it wasn't Hitler and his victims. It was Hitler and a compliant nation that were fearful of the consequences of telling the truth. So they lied to each other. And my Catholic brothers were not afraid of the consequences of truth. They didn't care where they ended up, because they knew one day they'd stand before God to give an accounting of their life. And the consequences of truth should never motivate you in the sense that you would be fearful, because God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So it was a no-brainer. The church is staying open. Now, we'll follow CDC standards, but you're not going to call us non-essential.